Welcome to the Hollywood Outsider Halloween episode. That's right, this year we are going to actually bring you several segments from past Halloween episodes, and I hope you enjoy a little throwback. We're going to talk a little bit about women in horror with Amanda's actual first ever podcast appearance. We have a little snippet from our interview with Darren Lynn Bousman, the director of the Saw movies. We're going to go back in time many years to when our original hosts talked about iconic horror villains, and then we're going to decide how we would survive a horror movie. That's right, this is our Halloween episode. A very happy Halloween. And I hope you guys really enjoy it. But before we get into it, I got a couple things I got to mention. One, watch The Trial of the Chicago 7 on Netflix. Fantastic film, probably going to be in the running for a lot of awards. It's definitely worth your time, and it really speaks to the unprecedented times today that aren't so unprecedented. Also, a scientific poll recently, since we're talking about Halloween, scientific poll recently did a study where it evaluated via heart palpitations or whatnot exactly what the scariest movie of the last 20 years is. Sounds fascinating, right? Basically, you're just measuring people's heartbeat. They watched 100 hours of movies, and the movie that won, based on science, people, was Sinister. Sinister, a movie I thought is just okay. So I went back and rewatched it because I'm like, if this is the scariest movie of the last 20 years, maybe I watched it on a bad night. Because here's what I thought. I thought it was the most okay movie ever. Very unremarkable, very unmemorable, except for the films, those little snuff films that they had in the film. So I went back and I rewatched it. And you know what I found? Still not scary. That first half is creepy as hell. Those movies are very eerie. And then as Ethan Hawke kind of goes through, and the whole premise is he finds these tapes, which is essentially snuff films. And he starts to learn that there's a demonic presence attached to these tapes of these murders of these families. And the tapes are very horrific. It's very uncomfortable to watch. And definitely moments build from that. But as soon as you get to that second half, the movie just falls apart. Like the ghosts that come into frame are so cheesy, it's hard to take it seriously. So I don't know what was happening, but I'm concerned about the people in this study. I'm concerned about their heart health, and I'm wondering if maybe they just need to go see a doctor, because obviously they can't handle much. I'm just being honest, because that movie is not scary. All right, so we're going to get into this. We've got a whole bunch to talk about, but before we do, we've got one thing we've got to mention. It's very important. If you want to win a copy of Love and Monsters, that's the movie we talked about last week. It premiered on demand. It's also in theaters in limited capacity, so check your local theater too. But it's also on demand. And it stars Dylan O'Brien, from Maze Runner and Teen Wolf, in a thrilling adventure that delivers epic action and laughs. He's a young man making a dangerous journey in a monster-infested world to be with the girl of his dreams. Now, we talked about this. He goes 85 miles through monster-infested Drek to get to Jessica Henwick from Iron Fist. Love Jessica Henwick. She's great. This is a fun movie. This is a great, fun movie. I would put it in the same category as a Zombieland or something along those lines. It's just great fun with laughs. And I really hope people find it. I hope you enjoy it. And it's on demand right now. And we're giving away 5 copies of this movie. So you want to win a copy of Love and Monsters. Here's what you have to do. You have to send an email to monsters@thehollywoodoutsiders.com. That's monsters@thehollywoodoutsiders.com. Do it no later than October 26th. And if you do that with a subject line that says, I love monsters, you'll be entered into a drawing to win one of 5 digital copies of Love and Monsters. It's worth it. Monsters@thehollywoodoutsiders.com. I'm telling you, this is a fun movie. Even if you don't want to enter to win, watch this flick, because this is probably one of the few movies this year that is premiered on demand where I'm like, I wish I could have saw this on the big screen. I really, really do. I just absolutely loved it, and I hope to see more of this world at some point. Dylan O'Brien was great, and once again, that's from Paramount Pictures, so thank you guys for those giveaways. Now, it's time to get into our Halloween episode. First up, we're going to build a better horror movie. Now, for this one, my fellow co-host, John Davenport, and I were joined by Heather Drain, who has been the co-host of plenty of the Projection Booth podcast. And we talk about building a perfect horror movie. What does it take to make the best horror movie possible? And then we each have our pitch for what that perfect horror movie would be. Now, I want to give you a little teaser. When you get to mine, and this is a year and a half, 2 years ago that this episode came out. When you get to mine, that's actually the screenplay I am working on right now. True story. So that movie that I am pitching in this episode is the screenplay I am working on right now. True story. Here we go. Here's Heather Drain joins John Davenport and myself, Aaron Peterson, to build a perfect horror movie. Let's go to our From the Outside In topic, where each week we talk about a topic on ours or our listeners' minds. And this week we're going to build a perfect horror movie. That's right. We're going to craft our own perfect horror movie, much like we did for Summer Blockbusters back in episode 273. But to get there, before we get there, we have to first find out exactly what you love or loathe about horror movies. So what do you love in your horror movies?
Oh man, that's a beautiful and such a loaded question, and I love it for it. I guess for me, like when I think of all the horror movies I love, first of all, atmosphere, like establishing a really tangible atmosphere, interesting characters that are, not just like the average sort of caricature that you expect. Mm-hmm. Emphasis on really great lighting, whether that's in black and white, like older black and white horror films, or, vibrant kind of colors, like especially like in your Italian, like giallos and those type of films. And definitely a great soundtrack. I think sound can be incredibly potent in all film, but especially horror. So those are some of the things I love a lot in my horror movies. When
you say sound, and I assume, with score and noise sound direction, do you like when the music is queued up before a big event happens, or do you prefer there is no cue to?
I think it depends on how it's done. I think every director is different and every film is different. Some films, when you think about some, especially when I think of like great soundtracks as far as like climactic, I tend to think kind of maybe like Hammer, like sort of 60s Gothic cinema, like Hammer films, and maybe even some of the Roger Corman Poe films. And I'm a little rusty in those. I need to revisit them. I think to me, it's just, it's not always what you do, it's the way that you do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. What about you, John? Stop giggling. You're so 12.
What? I didn't do anything. It wasn't me.
You thought it. Go ahead.
If I thought it, means you thought it. All right. I thought about this a lot because, you know what? I just want to be held. I want to be surprised. I want to be respected. I want the movie to buy me and buy my attention by giving me some respect. Understanding that I am not a dummy who's been to the movie for the first time. I want to know that they think that this is going to be something different, something special, instead of it being some cash grab or some joke about whatever they're trying to do. I want them to tell me what I should expect, and whether it's going to be a good time, a nightmare, any of those things. And then I want them to hold to that. I want them to really commit to it. It makes me crazy when movies kind of meander like I talk.
Well, at least you're up to it. It's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you?
I like quiet scares. Quiet scares are my favorite. A door creaking behind a character with no sound, no cue. I'm a big no cue guy. Heavy infusion of atmosphere. I love atmosphere, and I prefer less gore, more implication. I mean, if there's a horrific act, I really love a quick shot. I like where we know something horrible's happened. Either we get the expression on the character's face, or we get, maybe even a reflection in a mirror. We know something horrible happened, but we don't see it except for maybe like a quick frame or two, just enough to get you to debate what you actually saw. I love that. And when a movie can do that and can nail that, that is something that just really gets me excited in any movie, but especially horror movies. And then there are also times where I just like an axe-wielding lunatic carving up co-eds on a Friday. But for the most part, I like quiet scares.
Now, you think you like it because you feel more drawn in, or like what do you think? What makes you think you like that more?
I think with most movies, I love to know that I'm in a movie. This might sound weird, but most movies, I love that I know I'm watching a movie. I'm escaping. It's a different world. In a horror movie, to me, it affects me more if I feel like it's real. And music cues take that away. Loud, cats jumping out of cupboards takes that away. Things like that just take me out of it, because then I'm reminded this is a movie. When you have and I love when filmmakers do this. When they have no score or very limited score, you don't hear much music, characters are just walking, something happens, and the director doesn't have to stick the camera on what happened to make sure you saw every bit of it. It affects me a lot more because then your mind starts playing tricks on you. You think you saw something, maybe you didn't. Maybe it was your mind will make it seem more ghastly and violent than it actually was, or more horrific. And that's why I love those moments.
Okay. I buy it. I buy it into it entirely. It to me, that's everything I was thinking of, how a director will respect you as a viewer by letting you enjoy it instead of having to feel like he has to show you everything right there in your eye.
I like that. Now, on the same token, what do you loathe? Can't stand, want no part of, don't want it near your horror movie?
Well, like you mentioned, I don't like that big crescendo music just before something bad happens. That makes me crazy because you're sitting there and you're like, okay, well, it's going to happen. All right. And at this point in our movie watching career, we've gone through it so many times that it doesn't have the effect on us that that the creators want us to have. It doesn't sit there and say, oh my God, it's going to happen. Here it comes. Now we're just like, all right, well, please, any minute now. I don't like that. I don't like it when they try to use ridiculous jump scares for no good reason. The murderer that's doing everything, his head's rolling around on the ground. Why is his body suddenly jumping out at somebody? It doesn't make any sense. They didn't tell us that was a possibility. I don't get it. It's just weird things like that.
One of the things I absolutely love, well, and not even just in horror film, but film in general. And John, I thought you nailed this so beautifully when you're talking about that you want to be respected. And to me, it's like, if I feel like I'm watching, especially a horror film where I feel like it's just everything is just so by the numbers. There's no effort. There's no vision. There's no excitement. They're just clearly like, oh yeah, here's a dead little girl. That's a ghost. And oh, here's a creepy doll and all of that. It just, I'm just immediately like almost offended. I'm like, you're not even trying. And I can tell you're not even trying to make an interesting film. It doesn't necessarily have to be scary. I mean, I love horror films, but most horror films don't actually personally scare me, and that's okay, that's fine. But yeah, it's just don't do that. Don't at this point, like the whole, like, I hate the whole muted colors and tones that have really plagued, I think, a lot of modern horror in the past, like probably 15 years, where everything's this dingy earth tone. Doing sort of like fast cuts, like music video style editing. It can't, I hate it.
It's awful.
I mean, I don't mind it as much from, like, say, Rob Zombie, because Zombie, I think, obviously loves horror film.
Oh, we will fight. You and I are going to have to duke it out.
Oh, no. Well, I haven't seen all of his films. I've only seen the first two, so
okay.
I can't speak to any of the Halloween remakes or
if you're
or that. I've just seen the first two. So.
We're okay. We're still good.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
I was going to ask if I should just leave the room because Mom and Dad were about to fight. So
yeah. Yeah, son, you need to go to your room. Your father and I, we have to have a talk.
And it's strictly about the Halloween remake and how you...
No, I haven't seen it because that was one where I'm like, the original's fine. I don't need to see it remade.
Good for you.
But no, I mean, but as a whole, like, yeah, the music video style editing is cheesy. I'm not a big fan of CGI. I think practical effects contain more atmosphere. And to me personally, I think the problem with most CGI is it looks so shiny, you can tell it's fake. And to me, like, the whole thing about horror is you're trying to immerse the viewer in this scenario, in this world. And the minute you see something that you can't physically touch or smell or see, like if you were actually in the film, then to me for me at least, that takes me out of it. I'm a practical effects girl through and through with horror.
How about gore? Speaking of practical effects, how do you feel about horror? Do you feel like, gore? Do you feel like gore should be kept to a minimum? Do you like heavy gore? Do you like guts hanging out? I
liked it all. I mean, to me, again, it just depends on how it's done. Because, like, for example, one of my favorite films is Lucio Fulci's The Beyond. I think that film is completely atmospheric. I think it's creative. I think it's unusual. I love it. I think the cast are great. I love everything about that film. And Lucio Fulci, for anybody who's not familiar with his work, like, he is one of the masters of gore and horror films. Like these, you know, if you don't like gore, you just probably should just stay away from Fulci in general. If you see the name Fulci, you're probably, you know, and I love Herschel Gordon Lewis, and, you know, who's the godfather of gore, who made Blood Feast and The Wizard of Gore and A Taste of Blood and Something Weird. And he's one of my favorites. So I'm not actually opposed to gore. Again, it's just how it's handled. If you're leaning on nothing but the gore, then yeah, that's lazy. That's just laziness. It's not going to be effective. If you know how to incorporate it, I think, in an interesting way, then it can absolutely work. I'm not opposed to gore. I'm just opposed to people being, I guess, boring. Don't be boring.
That's fair. That's a good point. A solid point. Don't be boring in a horror movie. Nobody wants to watch your boring movie, Aronofsky. Yeah, I said it. All right.
Burn.
Anything else that you don't like?
So there are certain scenarios that I think are really played out. I years ago, I had to review the Amityville remake, which was not fun for me. That was not a good remake. And I mean, which is sad because the original really isn't that great of a film.
Was that the Ryan Reynolds one?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there was like this whole thing where there was like this dead little girl, and it's like, and you could tell they were just thinking, oh, this is going to be so creepy. But because you knew that they expected that from you, it was like anything but creepy. It's just like, oh, this again, you know, like, and it's just, so I think people just need to, you know, I mean, you can make anything work, but be creative. You know, just and for God's sake, no more music video editing, no more jump scares. I'm with you guys on that. Completely. Like, it's expected. It's so expected. How is it going to be scary for anybody?
Yeah, and I love when people, you know, like, they got you jumped. Well, yeah, I jumped. That doesn't make me not hate it. Like,
it doesn't make them right.
Yeah, it doesn't make them right. It wasn't really scary so much as, all right, you tricked me. That's a gimmick that only works once. That's not horrific to me. You know, it's cheap scares. That's what I see as jump scares.
It's like, yeah, it's just lazy. It's just, you know, have some effort. Put some effort out there, guys.
Have some moxie. Somebody said the word. Who was that said moxie? It was like
I love that.
It's like a 1940s noir. Yeah, have some moxie, kid. Yeah.
It's also a particularly unpleasant soda, but that's a whole other podcast, I'm sure.
Moxie is? I've never heard.
Yeah, it's like an older soda, but they still make it. It's I think it's more regional. Like, I want to say it's maybe more in like the New England part of the United States. But wow. I have tried Moxie, and it's it doesn't have Moxie. It's a misnomer.
All right, I will try to avoid that. I've got several that I don't like. My number one is ghosts. I don't care. Don't wanna. I've got one eye on the door whenever I'm watching a ghost story. They can get me. Conjuring got me. I mean, there are plenty of movies that have worked for me, but most of the time I'm just like, where's Scooby-Doo? Because this don't look real. It doesn't. It just, for me personally, I don't really subscribe to the supernatural, so it doesn't really affect me. And I really feel like ghosts are one of the few movie things that you kind of have to believe in for them to work well for you. It's a personal opinion. It's not like Jason. I don't need to believe in crazy, you know, machete wielders to believe in him. But ghosts, I feel like I should have to believe in them a little to get terrified. So they don't really do much for me. One thing that really bugs me in horror movies, people getting killed for having sex. It's 2017. I mean, everybody over 15 years old has had sex. Even if you're listening, even your kids, if they're over 15, they've had sex. I'm sorry to break it to you. So just let them boink, and let's not keep killing teenagers. Nobody's with me. It doesn't feel like. I don't know.
No, I was just riveted.
It's literally sexist. That's what I'm looking at. It's literally sexist. Yeah.
Well, and again, it's expected. It's a trope at this point too. Like, as soon as you see like some teenagers, and by teenagers, of course, we mean actors that are in their late 20s, especially if we're going by the, which is good. I don't want it to look creepy, but like you expect it as soon as, or some girl gets naked for the shower. You know, she has just written her death certificate. So I guess basically people have to be dirty virgins. Like, and dirty, I don't mean like, you know, sexually impure. I mean, like, you haven't showered in days. and there's no making out. That sounds awful. That sounds like a miserable way to live, doesn't it? You're all stinky and you're sexually frustrated. Nobody wants that.
Just to
Come
survive. I just want to survive.
Yeah, no, it's not good. There are films that are exceptions that I love that totally play on those tropes. But
most of those films that you love to play on those tropes are from the 80s and 90s when those tropes are being developed. So it was good back then because it's the originators. But now at this point, it doesn't have the same kind of effect as it used to. That's one of those things where it's like when people try to bring that up or try to use that as something, you go, okay, well, I've seen this. Why aren't you're not really respecting my personal what I've gone through to get here in your movie.
My journey. Two more. I really enjoy when a killer kind of catches up to the victim. I really like that. When we thought they got away, but the killer's right there. But not when they jump out in front of them, because you're so hysterical. You didn't see like a 7-foot freak with a hockey mask in front of you. That I don't like that. I'm okay.
Tunnel system. It's a tunnel system underneath the camp.
Everywhere. So many movies have that. When the killer just jumps out in front of them and there's nothing but like a thin Christmas tree. Okay. I could see somebody hiding there. There's no way I don't see him like running at me to jump out in front of me. That's always boggled my mind.
A thin Christmas tree.
A very, very thin Christmas tree. Probably lit up.
It's like Charlie Brown's Christmas tree that you're trying to hide behind.
Yes.
I totally pictured that, John. That's exactly what I was picturing. This poor little scraggly tree with like 2 ornaments on it, and there's a giant killer.
I hope he doesn't see
I've done that before. I've tried. I'm going to hide behind this, and it's like a twig, and I'm way too big for that.
Yeah. See, they would see you coming. They would.
Yeah.
I'm going to hide behind this dollhouse. Yes.
That's why I do cardio. I got to keep up the cardio so that I can catch my victims.
Yes, and I like that. I respect catching them. I'm going to get ahead of them and jump out in front of them. And I was hiding here this whole time, or I just got here and nobody saw that coming. I can't.
And they're never breathing heavy when they catch them like that too. They're not. No. You almost lost me at the boathouse. Whew. Here I am though.
Right?
I
gotcha. Wait. Just hold tight. All right. My last one. I don't want leprechauns, dolls, rabid dogs, hallway ghost twins, possessed kids, sparkly or sexy vampires. And I definitely don't want reboots of a series right in the middle of my slasher series, Halloween 3. So those are the things I don't want. All of those.
I'm going to die by rabid dog. I know it. Or radioactive dog. Radioactive puppies in Chernobyl. That's how I'm going to die.
What? They're so cute.
So it would be adorable. Your death would be adorable.
Yeah.
The cutest
I'll be
death.
covered in radioactive Chernobyl puppies. That's the worst way to go. But it'd be adorable.
Nobody would be scared.
I have to say, Aaron, I'm with you on, for the most part, the whole creepy doll thing is so, unless somebody can pull out something that's the equivalent of like Doll Man, that Tim Thomerson movie.
My God, woman. Did
you stretch? Did you stretch before you pulled that?
That was Doll Man. No, listen, my brain immediately goes to places like Tim Thomerson as a tiny man. It's Tim Thomerson in general. He's a great character actor, but
what was that?
Somebody would have to. But that's not really creepy doll. I guess that's not really horror. So I guess otherwise, yeah, no, I'm with you. Like and especially these creepy dolls that don't even look creepy. Like anytime I've seen like something from Annabelle, which in fairness, I've seen none of those movies. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're good. I don't know. It's not my thing. But that doll looks like, you look at her and I'm like, if you found that in your attic, you're not going to be like, oh wow, what's that? You're going to be like, is this a bad haunted house prop? Like, what is this? It's ridiculous. And yeah, I'm actually kind of done with zombie films for now. First, I'm not going to say I fully loathe it because I love a lot of older zombie films. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of burnt out. So, I don't know. I'm burnt out on it a little bit. That's maybe just a personal thing though.
Yeah. You got to kind of going back to what you said. It's how you do it. They've got to reinvent it. If they're going to keep cranking out zombie movies, it's got to be a new idea. It's got to be creative. It's got to be fun. Maybe Zombieland. I'd watch another Zombieland movie in a heartbeat. but definitely zombies are dying.
Oh, yeah. No pun intended. Sorry.
No, that's great. So it's time for us to each unveil our you know what? I want to go back to Tim Thomerson. What was it? Trancers? Was that his big series that he did like 45 of those direct to video?
He was absolutely in Trancers, which also featured a young Helen Hunt.
Yes. Yeah. I did like that. I remember going to the video store so I could get Trancers 8 or whatever the hell they went up to.
I, in my opinion, some of the best Full Moon, because those were all from like Full Moon Video.
Mm-hmm.
The best those of the company was Trancers and, of course, Subspecies, which Subspecies is a brilliant example of how to take something like the vampire myth and create something really new while still kind of honoring like horror gothic cinema and everything. Like those first three especially are fantastic.
God, I gotta go. I just want to rewatch Trancers now. I'm sorry. I kind of want to stop the podcast and just go watch Trancers. I loved that movie as a kid. Okay, sorry.
It's so good.
So it's time for us to unveil our next horror blockbuster. So give us your perfect horror movie. It's going to go John, Heather, me. Your perfect horror movie. Plot, concept, scenes, whatever you can muster creatively, you can go ahead and throw it in here. It's up to you. Tell us your perfect horror movie. Build it.
All right. So my perfect horror movie is titled On This Night. Okay. Nice, cheesy horror movie name. This is going to be a whole little like a fun throwback to the grainy film type, or think about your 1980s tape that you watched 1,000 times. The movie is going to be shot and filmed and shown pretty much in this sort of style, but everything that you're seeing is very contemporary. You got it's 2017 cars, 2017 phones, all that other stuff. It's actually all in this movie, but you're seeing it very much like an old Grindhouse movie or an old tape of a horror flick you've seen a million times.
Okay.
And it starts out with a group of friends sitting around the TV. One of, they turn off the TV. One of them stands up and he's like, "What did we just watch?" And then from there, this group of friends start investigating what they're watching. And every now and again, they're throwing back to hints of what they saw and how it freaked them out. And it keeps coming back to them in their mind, but they're investigating it because they're really worried about surviving the night all of a sudden because of this. I can't figure out how I want the deaths to go, whether I want it to be a vengeful spirit kind of thing, or I want it to be like a slasher kind of monster thing. I don't know, but I don't think that's nearly as important as a concept of what these kids are going through. The night progresses, everyone starts to die one at a time in their own horrible fashion, and then we get to the very last person. The very last person turns out to be the guy or the girl who was the one who stood up and turned the TV off and was like, "What did we just watch?" Or that. And at this point, they're yelling at the guy that's been doing all the killing, going, "This isn't the way it's supposed to happen. This isn't the way we saw it. This isn't all this other stuff." And then boom, that person's dead. So
I want to watch that right now. That was
right.
That was good.
That was an awesome description.
I like
it. The credits start to roll.
Oh, there's more.
There's more. The credits start to roll on this, but then the screen just freezes. And after a brief moment, the screen kind of starts to pull back and you realize you're looking at a TV. And it's a very clear, very contemporary TV. Everything is in good high definition now. And the camera spins around and you see everybody that you just watched die in this movie just staring at the screen, open mouth gape. And the person who was the last person standing up is just standing up, looking at the screen. Everyone's shocked. End credits, movie's done.
Whoa.
Oh, that is cool.
So are they all alive then? Man, don't make me get a headache.
See, what's beautiful about this idea is that you can technically build a series out of this, a good like a slasher series or monster series, and the first movie would be everyone watching what happened, and then the next movie is them trying to survive the night and doing things kind of different from the first movie. So purposely doing things different from the first movie. So it's kind of like if you take Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, how they're the same movie but different. Mm-hmm. Kind of like that. I think that'd be kind of fun and different and new.
I like it. That's a really good idea, man.
Yeah, I do too. Well, especially because I love a lot of my favorite like horror films tend to have ones that have like something that kind of leaves you at the end of it being like, huh, but not in a bad way, just kind of like, something that kind of gives you something to chew on a little bit, but in a smart way. Like that's a smart way to do a twist of sorts. I like it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was very proud of myself when I thought of that one.
And no box of flies.
No box of flies. You know what? I was really trying to take it seriously, and I was like, how am I gonna beat the box of flies? And granted, this is no box of flies, but it's still pretty good.
Wasn't that from our building summer episode? Didn't you do box of flies in that one?
No, I think it was there was a different one that we were trying to do.
New listeners are like, what the hell are you talking about? John had concocted this. We were trying to come up with like legitimate threats to people in movies that could be used that haven't been used, and he came up with a box of flies, and for some reason it became it caught on. People really liked the idea of someone throwing a box of flies. It was just so absurd. That's why it was so
It was how to beat villains, that episode.
That's
how to beat the villains. And the box of flies was necessary to beating Loki.
So stupid. All right, Heather, do you have your movie ready? Do you have a movie to sell us? Did you build one?
I do. Now I'm going to give you a heads up.
Mm-hmm.
Like John's movie, it's so beautifully, John, it's like you already have it's like a shot list. You got the script proofed. You are like good to go. This is a very loose pitch. Mine is a loose pitch, and I'm not good at building blockbusters because my taste is so organic. It's just weird. But this is what I came up with. Is that if I had my druthers, and I had like all the budget, and I wanted to make a serious horror film, because otherwise I'd want to make a 6-hour like horror musical comedy biker film.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm actually going to give you two options here. Do you want that pitch or do you want the other one?
I want both.
Why not both? Could both be an option?
Can we have both?
Los dos?
Okay. Well, I'll give you the first one. The first, my 6-hour opus. It's untitled, but check this out. The core of the film is centered around a really skeevy ladies' man played by Tom Waits, who's like the kind of guy that takes like a girl to like a Mexican buffet, like a really cheap one, and then at the end he's like, "So, baby, I bought you dinner," like that. Like he's that kind of guy, and he wears like net shirts, like see-through net shirts. So in other words, he's awesome.
Just like John, actually. So yeah, I'm with you. Yep.
John, you're the man. That's amazing.
Yeah, I have a whole closet full of see-through net shirts. I look awesome in them.
But there's all these subplots. So Tom Waits, his character is the center. Nearby are a group of like fun-seeking like teenage beach bums, and they see like a castle that is on an island that is just just a few miles away. And there's all these sort of like great myths and legends about this castle and who lives there. And two of them decide, hey, let's go check it out one night. And they get on a little boat and they make it to the castle. The castle is run by a bunch of like Euro trash vampires who are doing all kinds of satanic blood rites, and they're having orgies. And there's all this great like Italian music being played, or maybe even like Serge Gainsbourg. Maybe we'll go French for this. Like they're real like chic sleazy. So there's that. Now the other kids get kidnapped by some bikers that are all hopped up on meth, amphetamines, and acid. Okay. And there's musical numbers in this. I don't know if I mentioned that. There's going to be musical numbers. Mm-hmm. And somehow Tom Waits' ex-wife, her kid that may be his daughter, they never did a blood test, I'm not entirely sure, but is one of the kids that gets kidnapped. So he gets involved, and it's up to him to rescue the teens, both from the bikers, but also the sleazy European orgiest satanic vampires.
I love this.
I mean, I would watch it.
6 hours might be going for it maybe a little bold. But
well, if Michael Bay can make a 3-hour Transformers movie, then damn it, I'll watch 6 hours of Tom Waits solving crime and devil worshiping vampires and beach blanket bingo. I mean, come on. It sells itself, really.
There are many people who would argue that Michael Bay could not make a 3-hour Transformers movie.
Yeah, he actually didn't make a 3-hour Transformers movie.
Did it just feel like 3 hours? I haven't watched.
It just wasn't a Transformers movie. It was a bunch of metal fighting metal and stuff.
Smashy robot.
That is not the Transformers from my childhood.
No.
That's all I'm going to say on that.
All right. So what's your legitimate pitch? You had 2. So that's
legitimate. That's totally legit.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way.
I'm teasing. The other one would be sort of a gothic style, more traditional, called The Hollow Inn, and it's about like this group of writers who are journalists for like a travel magazine are invited to go to this old house in New England and to do a story on this little quaint bed and breakfast. And one of the writers ends up very quickly kind of unearthing that this house locally does not have the best reputation, and in fact was built by a family in the early 1900s that had come into money, and their son was sort of this ne'er-do-well who got involved in the occult and was using opium and just sort of the black sheep of the family, and in fact was part of a fire that happened in a smaller, like a carriage house on the property. And there was always rumors that the fire was done, because of, basically him tampering too much with the occult and dredging up something, and 5 people died in it. And so she ends up also having this weird interaction with the caretaker there, who ends up being a blood lineage to this. And it's just basically kind of involving like the sins of the fathers kind of thing. But also my twist would be, as she kind of does more research and actually talks to like a local, like a lady that does like kind of like tarot card readings, and all that's kind of a sham, but the lady actually does know her stuff when it comes to occult matters, basically she finds out that the guy didn't really know what he was doing with the occult. So it's not so much like a demon spirit that's been unleashed. It's more just like, dude didn't know what he was doing. And so I don't know. I guess that doesn't sound very scary. I'm sorry.
No, I like it.
I've actually ruminated on for years on the Tom Waits film. So I don't know, man. John, yours was so good. I'm feeling kind of like, I don't know. I just want to make a gothic old house movie with, I don't know, just lots of shadows, good music, weird character actor people, probably some strange sexuality in the mix, and basically, I don't know. So I feel shy
Repo,
now.
Right? I'm seeing Repo, the genetic opera, but on crack.
But this isn't a musical, though. Oh wait, are you talking about the 6-hour Tom Waits film?
Well, yeah.
Oh no, the music would be better then, because I had problems with Repo, the genetic opera. Like, I liked some parts of it. I thought Bill Moseley was amazing in it, but he's amazing in everything. And Ogre from Skinny Puppy. I don't know. That's a whole other thing. Awesome. I love Ogre. But yeah, so I don't know. Aaron, what's your pitch?
I'm focused. I really like your second idea, but I gotta be honest, the 6-hour musical biker vampires, the orgies, everything about that sounds phenomenal. Like I could watch that for a long time.
Yeah,
I shouldn't. I probably shouldn't, but I will. I would love it.
You totally should. Wait till you see the Blu-ray. Like the extras, amazing.
They're real orgies. Like it's actually happening.
It's like, well, like there's the whole thing of The Howling 2.
Yes.
Have you guys seen The Howling 2? Where there's werewolf orgies, but I guess like the actors were locals, and they just did, I guess there was a language barrier because they just started straight up doing it. Like they just were like, okay, we're in it to win it.
And Sybil Danning's in the back going, wait, what? What?
Yeah.
What is going on?
She's in the back getting mad because the director, Philippe Mora, like edited her top to be ripped off a bunch of times. I
remember that. Yeah, I remember that. All right. Well, I got a movie. I don't have a title. I couldn't come up with a title, but I have an entire movie. So you guys are going to have to be patient with me. Okay.
All right. We're ready. We're bracing ourselves.
I'll do the whole thing. It's basically a screenplay. So it might take 120 minutes. All right. So this little boy, Billy, wakes up His room is full of movie posters and family pictures, and the camera would show all that. He seems very upbeat, and it's established early that he lives in a remote farmhouse with his, well, I'll tell you, away from everything. He's basically away from everything. His mother and father both live there. They're together, but they're estranged, kind of living separate lives. Dad works on the farm while mom works in the city 15 miles away, and she gets back late every single night and hasn't said a word about his birthday, which is tomorrow. Dad is the only one who's there for Billy all of the time. So Billy bounces down the stairs as tomorrow is his 11th birthday, and he's screaming, here boy, looking for his dog, obviously. So he looks around, no dog. Here, Scout, opens the front door, and he finds Scout murdered, dead, right in front of him on the front porch. We see the panic and tears in Billy's face, and then a quick flash of the dead dog. Like I said, I'm very big on the quick flash, so you don't actually see much. You just see like a frame or two of what happened to the dog. So his dad comes racing from the barn and sees the dead dog, but he has no idea what to think. He thinks it might be an animal attack, or it could be the area kids, bullies that pick on Billy all the time, a bit too much. They're kind of sadistic. 4 boys that actually happen to be watching from afar. They're watching as they find the dog because it was them. Sadistic little bastards. It was them. So these boys are laughing at their own cruelty, and they spend a good 10 minutes of the movie discussing horrible things they can now do to Billy and kind of setting up some plans for what they're going to do. Then one of them turns around and finds a large man whose face is shadowed standing in his way. So the kids start talking smack because they're stupid. One of them whips out a knife that killed that dog and threatens the man. He lunges at him. The man grabs the knife and kills that little bastard. The other 3 boys, they run. And one by one, this man picks them off in horrific ways. Strangulation, tossing one off a mini rock cliff. Lastly, the knife is thrown from 20 feet away and gets the last kid in the back. We never see the killer's face. Everybody with me so far?
Yes.
Okay. We eat some more screen time, showing Billy and Dad in their natural element. The sheriff shows up to Billy's house that night, saying that 4 boys have turned up missing, those same 4 boys. The exact same 4 boys that his dad was worried about. Dad tells Sheriff about the dog. Sheriff says to be careful, make sure that nothing's going on, just keep an eye on your farm. Billy keeps thinking he's seeing a figure around the field, like he's seeing something in the cornfield. He's seeing something walking or creeping around, but he can't prove it to his dad. So his dad thinks he's just seeing things. He's a kid. Night comes, everybody's in bed. Billy is once again paranoid, and then someone tries to come into his window. He's trying to open it very slowly. Billy sees it. Billy starts screaming, screams his head off, and slams the window shut right on whatever that was in the window. His dad runs in, and Billy screams exactly what happened. Dad runs outside, sees nothing. Runs around the farm, sees nothing. Picks up the phone to call the police, but that line is dead. And they don't get cell coverage out here. So Dad is getting ready to leave to go to the sheriff's station when Mom pulls up. Dad shoos Billy into the house, and Mom walks in. They catch her up to speed exactly with what's been going on, and they all agree that they need to head into town and alert the sheriff. These aren't stupid horror people. They're not going to stay at the house even though the phone's dead and Billy saw something and the dog's dead. They're going to go to the sheriff and tell him what's going on. As they run out to Mom's car after they had this conversation, the tires are flat. They run the dad's car, tires are flat. So they have no choice. They're going to have to run 15 miles to town. So the rest of the movie is a little bit of a chase film as Mom, Dad, and Billy attempt to flee from an elusive killer who they escape from numerous times. So the killer catches up to him and then they get away. And then he catches up to him and they get away. And at some point, the killer catches Dad and guts him. Because we just spent half the movie thinking Dad was going to be the hero and he's no longer part of the story. So Dad is now out of it. It's Mom and Billy. So as Mom and Billy are near the sheriff's office, near the end of the movie, they're almost there. They finally make it. They've gotten away several times. They still don't know who this killer is. The killer catches up to them once again, grabs Mom, and starts to strangle her. Billy, he's kicking, he's screaming, he's pleading, and the killer's face finally comes into the light, and Billy just says, Jesse? The reveal is that you saw this killer earlier in the family pictures on Billy's nightstand, and it was Billy's older brother, Jesse. Billy begs him to stop, and all Jesse says is she's worse than him, and he kills their mom. So then Jesse turns to Billy, and everybody thinks that this is it. This kid's going to die. And he looks like he's reaching to kill him. Another chase ensues, and then Jesse finally does catch him after Billy, gets him a few times and wounds him a couple times. Jesse just picks him up, walks to the sheriff's station, hugs him, kisses him on the cheek, and says, "Happy birthday, champ." Puts him down. No, hang on. There's more. puts him down,
Oh my God.
and walks away into the night. So Billy tells the sheriff everything. And the sheriff turns Billy over to his aunt, and they starts to look into Jesse. Turns out he's been in military school for years, and he escaped just this morning. He left a note for his roommate saying he won't let this happen again, not to Billy. So with a bit more research from the sheriff, we learn Jesse's dad molested him beginning on his 11th birthday. And when he threatened to tell, Dad sent him to military school. When he told his mom, she didn't believe him. And the whole time, this whole movie, Jesse was just trying to protect his brother from the same fate.
I dig that.
Whoa.
I like that twist.
Huh? Just think.
Holy cats, man. I love it. And that is messed up. and it's truly unexpected. That's good. That's really, really good.
I gotta write it. I got half of it done, so I might as well just go write the rest of the screenplay.
I was about to say.
You got the outline.
I might. I have to come up with a title. Listeners, if you got a good title for that, put it in the Facebook. We always put the post in the Facebook group. Go there or hit us up on Twitter or send us an email. Feedback at thehollywoodoutsiders.com. I'd love to know any ideas for a title for my eventual masterpiece. So, cool. I'm glad you guys liked it. And make sure, anybody listening, let us know which one of these pitches you like the most or what you would like to see done with it. Maybe if you happen to be a producer, get a hold of one of us and we'll make a deal. You know what I'm saying? We'll work it out. Did you guys have fun?
Yeah, it was a good time.
Absolutely. I feel like the kid that has is third place in the science fair. Your guys' pitches were so good.
Oh, this is the first time you've ever even been on this podcast. So, you get the newbie curve right there. And two, you came up with two pitches and one of them had musical bikers. You can't top musical bikers. You just can't.
And did I mention one of the musical bikers is Tim Thomerson?
Okay, now you just crossed the line. There's
what? How dare you?
Okay, now we're going to a real time capsule of an episode. This is Amanda Sink, our fellow co-host, very first appearance on any podcast, I do believe. Do quote me on that, because let's just say I'm right. The very first appearance she ever made. It was an episode we did with our fellow co-host, Justin McCumber, who passed away a couple of years ago. And one of his co-hosts from a previous podcast, Eliana. And we were talking about women in horror. And there's a lot of conversation in that episode. I think it was 2.5 hours total. This is just a portion of it where we're talking about 80s and 90s. And there's even a section where Amanda and Eliana are fighting about what women wear in movies. And that was interesting because Justin and I were just scared to partake. But I think this is an interesting conversation. It was a great episode and a little taste of what's to come with Amanda in terms of the Hollywood Outsider podcast. So here you go. This is Women in Horror.
So let's move on to the 80s and the 90s. Now, this is when things start to shake out a little bit. The back and forth continued through the 80s, with the Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Streets, which always had female leads. And then once again in the 90s, women really started to take over in horror films, no longer just the slashers. What's weird is that the horror was really the first genre, the horror, is that in horror, female leads being such strong women, it was kind of where it started. Mm-hmm. Why do you think horror may have been a bit of a trailblazer in that respect, Aaron?
Honestly, I think it's twofold. I think one, women are, or were, however you want to say it, are seen as kind of vulnerable and innocent. Therefore, it's a little bit more horrific to put them in that dangerous situation and see them terrorized, or at least more horrific than a man by society standards. People see a man whining about a killer, they call him a little bitch. It's a total double standard, but it is what it is. And also the twofold, I think it's also business reasons. I think horror has always been kind of celebrity proof, meaning you don't have to have Joe major actor to sell the movie. It's going to sell itself. So you could put anyone in the lead and tickets would sell. So why not put a female in the lead to encourage female viewers to come to an otherwise previously seen as a male-centric genre? And I think in that respect, it's actually done a wonder because nowadays I know just as many female horror fans as I do male fans, if not more.
I think you're right on. I think that I think part of it, which you didn't mention, but totally plays into exactly what you're saying, is also just that the men that were going to see those movies, they wanted to be able to like, and women like me and Amanda wanted to be able to see, hot chicks on screen. So the more prominent you made them in the movie posters, the more prominent their roles, it also helped sell your movie. So, because it had that kind of dual effect of being like a movie where, you didn't need to have stars, and also part of the point is that it's hot to watch. And so you get all these like no-name actresses and it helps launch their careers. Whereas more established actresses, celebrities, you couldn't even bring into it if you tried because they didn't want to show that much skin because it could harm their reputation. So it did, I think, really help launch the careers of a lot of female actresses who otherwise wouldn't have had a ticket in. And, and I think that they expanded their audience to women. And I think, there's a ton of female horror fans because of how women started to lead films in the 80s. I mean, this is where you bring up Alien and like other movies like that, where you get these like total badasses that start coming on the scene. Sidney Prescott.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, it's a really fun time for horror.
I will totally agree with you for Sidney Prescott, because that's actually the point I wanted to make, is that in the 90s you had Scream come out, and I think that was a huge turning point for women, because granted there are strong women in other movies, but I guess maybe it's just my personal opinion, but for that movie specifically, I think she was perfect. She still had sex. She still was not as innocent as she was kind of expected to be in the beginning of the movie, for the first one. But she was always a survivor, and she was always a badass. She had bigger balls than most of the guys I know. I mean, in the first movie, she's on the phone with him, and she calls his bluff that he's on her front porch, and walks outside without even a hesitation. And I think that was probably one of my Scream
one
is
of the
definitely
scariest things I've ever seen. Actually, was her opening that door.
It's terrifying.
And there's nothing there. That's the brilliant part about that scene. It's so terrifying, and there's nothing there.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact that she had the guts to go out there and do it, and I feel like she was the like a prime source of strength for women, in horror movies, because she showed that strength by going out there and never backing down from this guy. These guys, actually. Spoiler alert. From like 1996. But
I also love Gail Weathers. I think Courtney Cox is amazing in that movie. I think she's a great character. She's another like extremely strong woman in a horror movie. And she kind of comes out of nowhere, like as being someone that you, especially through the franchise, as the franchise develops, like she becomes someone that I care more about.
Yeah.
Both of them, I think, are just brilliant women characters.
And going back before that, if you look at Nancy from the original Nightmare on Elm Street and the sequels that she was in, she was always very similar to Sidney Prescott in that way, that she was always smart and she was thinking ahead and trying to figure out exactly how do we stop this nightmare that is going on with all of our friends. And I really like that they took those turns, because it did change exactly how horror was seen, especially women in horror were seen. Because honestly, there's hardly any male leads in horror films anymore. I mean, it is like a female-dominated genre at this point. Would you
We're
guys
usually the killers.
What's that?
We're usually the killers.
Well, yeah, rightfully
unless
so.
it's
We're
like
sons of bitches.
Friday the 13th, the first one.
He's not a guy.
You know what else I think is a really important 90s mention is Clarice, Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
Smart, articulate, vulnerable without being,
a professional,
yes.
Like someone who has a professional role, who has skills,
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think she was another really important turning point. She kind of sets the stage in many ways. I don't know, I've never thought of this before, but for what's her name from the X-Files? Dana
Scully.
Scully,
Yeah.
I think she sets the stage for that role and for like other role, like the police procedural horror, lady thing. It didn't really exist until her.
That's true.
Yeah, Chris Carter has gone on record as saying that Clarice Starling was pretty much the template that he went with when making Scully.
Awesome! I totally tapped into that. I feel smart now.
Do you think, though, that horror, because for so long it was kind of this genre of ill repute, so to speak, that maybe that's why, or let me approach it from the opposite direction. Women being such prominent characters and heroines in horror films was possible because horror was a bit of a lesser genre, and so maybe it was safer to experiment there? Or am I completely off base? Or did that make any sense at all?
No, it made sense. I don't think that women, you cast that directors are casting women in films because, hey, we can play here, no one really cares. I think it's really more that, and I've made this point a few times, maybe I'll try saying it differently. I think it's more that you go to horror movies for two reasons. And this goes, like I said, like at the beginning of the podcast, back to the Gothic literary tradition. Those started as romances, which were illicit, right? Like people couldn't read dirty books, even if it was just about a love story. Like that was not considered proper. And so you had romances that became the Gothic romances, which became the Gothic literary tradition. But it's like, it's this inextricable link between, sex and fear, horror and romance, and the sexiness part of horror you can't really untangle from it very easily. And so I think that like the reason women feature so prominently in horror is because they're part of the reason you're going to the movie or reading the book. It's because you want the sexiness, which means you need the tits and ass.
Right. Well, and women are just scary.
And we're terrifying.
I'm frightened.
It's because women are psychotic.
That's because they cut dicks off.
I do think that, women were more prominently put into horror movies. I think because possibly they wanted to extend the audience a little bit. Like, we're going to open it up more for women to want to come see these movies, because a lot of women that I know seem to be absolutely terrified of everything, for every movie. Back to like Final Destination. I know women that are scared of that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's
That's
pretty
sad.
depressing for them, but I mean, it opens the doors more to where women are like, okay, I might go see this movie even though it's going to be scary because of this girl, and you don't need a star celebrity to be the main actress in it.
I feel like most of my straight female friends would like rather go see a movie that like a hot guy they like is in, though.
Yeah, I mean, my wife, she's much more apt to watch a Captain America because Chris Evans might have his shirt off for a little bit than she would be to watch a Blair Witch or something like that.
Well, me too. Have you seen him without a shirt? Damn.
He is hot. Now, we've had some feedback from listeners, and several of them made this analogy, that women are cast because they're more vulnerable, giving a more dramatic arc to the story. Most female leads are really just the main victim as opposed to traditional leads. Even when the directors intend to make them stronger, it feels they often just do not believe it. How do you feel about that sentiment, Amanda?
I agree with it, but I don't agree with it.
You should be insulted by it. Continue.
I'm not
Amanda,
saying I agree
Amanda, what do you feel about that? Let me tell you what I think.
Here's how you should feel, Amanda.
Because women are weak, and that's why they're there.
Go ahead.
And they can have opinions of their own, so I'm giving it to you.
That's what Justin just did, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Again, I think that a lot of women are vulnerable. So casting them as vulnerable really isn't too out of realm for me. I mean, I think that because women are vulnerable, them surviving is incredible to me. It makes the story even better. But at the same time, I do wish that there was more directors that could pull through and make the women seem stronger and survive longer. And, no matter what they're wearing or who they are, or what they're doing, just survive and be the badass. And at the same time, I kind of think, maybe there's not too many actresses that can pull it off that would pull in a crowd. There's so many actresses who you can just throw them into a romance movie or a comedy or whatever, and it's going to work. How many people do you guys know of, actress wise, that you think could actually pull off being such a badass? I feel like the directors are kind of more limited with that. So it might not necessarily be the directors and the writers. It could be the actresses are just not there to be able to pull it out. What do you guys think? Do you guys have any, do you agree or disagree with that?
Well, I think that there's extremely talented actors that can do pretty much anything. I think it all comes down to the writers and, not the writers, but the writers and then the corporate people and what they're willing to buy and how they're getting pushed around. I mean, I think that's really what determines what kind of movies are being made. I mean, I think women actresses are complaining all the time that they'd like to do.
It's all they do,
roles.
complain.
Complaining women actresses. They'd like to do different kinds of roles than the ones that they're consistently presented with. I think there's desire on their part to do more and to do, stronger characters and more complex characters. I mean, in terms of the strength of characters, I think, you were saying what you would wish for. I would actually wish that, the idea of a strong female character would be less like making the woman act like a man as a way to show that the character is strong, and more just letting women be more the way they really are, but showcasing that as strength, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
'Cause I feel too often you have to go all Lara Croft in order to be, strong. And it was really cool in Alien, but not every, to show strength, I don't think you always have to just suddenly learn how to kick ass and use guns. I don't know, there's, or chainsaws or whatever. I think there's other ways to survive with strength. I know Laurie, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll just say Laurie from Walking Dead, is not a lot of fans' favorite characters from that show. But I mean, she's one of mine because I think her strength is watching her protect her son. And I don't think that makes her weak, that she's a mom and that that's her number one concern. I mean, I'm a little biased. I'm a mom with boys. And so I really identify with her character, but watching her do that effectively, even if it means she's not always fighting zombies to do it, I think is a more interesting way to me to show strength for a woman character than, what's her name? The blonde girl, is it Angela or whatever, who's more kick-ass. She's less interesting.
Andrea,
thank you. She's in the, cause she and Laurie are sort of compared to each other in the, the first season, second season. And I feel she's less interesting just cause she is better with weapons doesn't make her more kick-ass to me. It just doesn't.
Do you think that a part of the reason why people didn't respond to Laurie in a more positive way had anything to do with the fact that she unknowingly cheated on her husband?
Totally.
Oh, no.
See, it's so funny. The women immediately go to yes, and Eric goes right to no.
No, I think that's an easy answer, and I think that's a typical answer, but I don't agree with that at all. Most of the people I know that didn't like her was because she was just fucking annoying. She wasn't
because anytime, we could go into this too, but this whole women is whiny thing is
No, she wasn't a good actress. She didn't pull the role. I mean, she's just never. I loved her. I didn't like her on Prison Break.
I mean, I also in my head I kind of merged the comic strip Laurie with the TV show Laurie, so I'm also I'm not necessarily thinking purely about the acting, but the actress wasn't as good as she maybe could have been, but I like that character. I really do. She
was the for those that don't know, she was the actress. She played Michael Scofield's girlfriend in Prison Break. I didn't like her there either.
He died.
And I know, he did. And I know some people, I've heard that before, that, you don't like her because of, and I guess I get kind of frustrated by that because I think that's, for me personally, it's a silly sentiment because it never entered into why I didn't like that character.
I think some people do feel that way.
I think she made dumb decisions a lot. And I didn't think she was a very good protector. I don't think her husband is either. I think they're both very horrible parents and they should all die a horrible death. But,
you mostly get your wish there.
That's true.
Well, but that kind of leads into the next topic we were going to discuss, which is that women heroines are even still to this day, for the most part, kind of expected to be viewed as kind of virginal, goody two-shoes, not really all that promiscuous, while men are more allowed to be these flawed kind of anti-heroes. Do you think that is? And if so, why, Ellie?
I think it's less the case than it used to be, which is a good thing. Mm-hmm. There are anti-hero women. There's certainly way more anti-hero men. And definitely it's still the case that, there's bad girls that get punished and, good girls that get rewarded in horror movies. I mean, that still happens. It doesn't always happen though, right? That's not an exclusive it's not an exclusive way things are done anymore, but there's a reason why, and like, I never know how much to spoil, but like, how much do you just give a little warning?
It depends
like,
on what's the movie.
Cabin in the Woods.
I
It's
wouldn't.
been out enough years. I don't.
Yeah,
mind
I think you're
spoiling
okay.
it.
All right. Like, I feel like there's a reason Cabin in the Woods was still, you know, doing that kind of meta-referential stuff around virgin and horror, like, and doing kind of redoing what Scream did in the 90s in a way of being like, you know, this is the formula, and specifically this is how women play into it. The whore dies first. The virgin, you know, she used to
makes
survive.
it through to the end.
Yeah, but they did that important tweak where they said her death is optional. Right? Like, you know, because that was something that changed, right? Like, since Scream, right? Like, they went from last girl who survives to actually you can kill her if you want to, but as long as she's last.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I think that, you know, Cabin in the Woods wouldn't have, you know, set out, like, and then you've got the males in the middle with their various roles, like geek, jock, whatever the hell, I can't even remember. And it's still enough like that Cabin in the Woods got to make that long joke, right? And the joke wouldn't have worked. The whole gimmick of the movie wouldn't have worked if it wasn't still an absolutely, you know, dead on analysis of like the majority of films. And it's not all of them now, and that's a good thing, but it's still enough of them to kind of be, you know, an eye roll every time you see it. Like, how many times can you like sit down in a movie theater, sort of like pick out the different, you know, stereotypes that, you know, in front of you and be like, all right, so she'll die first, he'll die second, she'll make it to the end, maybe she'll die, maybe she won't. Like, you can still do that. Why is that? Because sexism. I have no good answer.
I think it's just, I agree with you. I think it is a little bit of sexism, and I think it's just good old double standard. I think that men are in society because of sexism. They're able to be seen as, you know, what they do is more acceptable. Their flaws are more acceptable, whereas women, it's, you know, if you do this, you're still back in 1942 and you're going to be banned and you're a terrible person. And
you still think there's a lot of that?
I do. And I mean, Ellie's right. It's not as common as it used to be, which, like she said, is a great thing, but it's still there. So it's still a problem. And I kind of wish that they would have maybe just switch it up, like have, an anti-hero for a guy that's, you know, not flawed, but then there's a woman in another movie who is ridiculously, and kind of switch it up more often. And it wouldn't be so looked down on. I think it is looked differently for women who are the leading role and who are basically sluts. And so that's, I don't know, that's just kind of
And don't you think when they switch it up too, like, it's sort of annoying that that's like the point of the movie. Like, hey, we're a switch it up movie.
Yeah.
In this movie, the slut's
much.
gonna live. Woohoo! Like,
Yeah,
let's all talk about that on Jezebel. Like, it's ridiculous, you know? Like, you can't do these things to make a show out of doing them. Like, hey, we're not going to be a stereotypically sexist film. Let's celebrate that. And that's actually the whole point of this movie. It should just be the way the characters are without it being a big deal that you're shining a light on, because that's your creative idea for the movie, is we're going to flip the roles around. Like, you know, it's that I think is also something that bothers me, is that even when you don't see it playing out the expected way, the whole point of the movie is that they're switching it around.
I agree. And I do think that tickets dictate a lot of the current environment. If people want to see different characters, they got to pay for them when they do come up, and a lot of people don't. So, unfortunately, I think a lot of the people that are the problem are Joe Public. You know, because
capitalism.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now that's how movies are. It's almost like how they're manufactured. They're not really made for art as much anymore.
No,
it's
made for
much
money.
more for commerce. And if the tickets are sold, people will go see them. But if they make a movie where the female lead is an anti-hero and people don't see it, you're not going to see them anymore.
Although Gone Girl is doing extremely well, and I won't say anything more about that because that would be extremely spoilery of me, but I mean...
That's a good example, yes.
It's a really good example.
Haven't seen it.
It's a good example we can't talk about.
That's right, we're not going to talk about it. Amanda, you will love it. Go see it.
I will. Well, there was one point that I wanted
that.
to make with sexism in movies before we move on, if that's all right.
Yeah.
I do want to point out that, first of all, I think that it's part laziness for the writers. And, you know, as Aaron was saying, if it's selling, then they're not going to change it. people are still seeing the movie, so it's still going to happen. But as for sexism, I want to acknowledge, even though we're on the topic of women in horror, I want to acknowledge that sexism is everywhere in movies, not just horror. I mean, if you think about it, most romance movies have a plotline where the woman is heartbroken because some guy wronged her, cheated on her, but the male is the one to blame. So they're just as stereotyped as women are in horror movies, you know, just in romance movies.
Hug a man today.
Hey, it's Aaron again. I'm back. Now, we interviewed director Darren Lynn Bousman, who directed Saw 2, Saw 3, Saw 4, and is also directing the spin-off reboot of Saw called Spiral with Chris Rock. And one of the questions we were asking him were centered around the Saw universe. So here's just a little portion. You want to hear the full interview, just find it in the feed somewhere. This is basically just a snippet where he talks about the traps in Saw and also some fun he had on set. This is Darren Lynn Bousman. Josh Steinman wants to know what your favorite killer trap was from the Saw films. He wants to let you know that Saw 2 is far and away his favorite in the series, and he loves Mother's Day and Repo too.
I think that I have two traps. I think for simplicity, Saw 2, the needle pit scene, just because it's so simple and it's so, you know, it was not the engineering of the other future traps. There was something just very simplistic about it, and I think, in my opinion, it's the trap in Saw that always has people squirming in their seats when they see it. So I think the needle pit is one of them. I think the other one is the twisty trap. It was called the rack, where the guy got into it and it began to twist him 1 degree until every bone in his body broke.
Yeah.
I think why that one was is because it was a real trap. It really worked to a point of, you know, being a little scary. One of the mandates we set very early on in the Saw universe was everything had to work as we showed it working in the movie. So if the trap did something, the trap actually had to do that. And so we made sure that with the rack, it really twisted people. Well, before we put the actor in it, we had a stunt person get into it, and the gears turned so hard and so fast that, I mean, the stunt person had to quickly jump, like, to pull the trigger and stop it, because it would have broken arms and legs. So then we had to re-tinker with the trap to make it safe for an actor to get into. So I was always shocked and kind of in awe of that trap, because it really was what we show it doing in the movie.
Did you ever put somebody you didn't like from the crew into one of these traps and just threaten them a little bit?
No, but I did do, I posted on this on Facebook last month, and I took it down, being like, you know what, that makes me look like an asshole, but I'll tell you because I think it's funny. Angus McFadden and I on Saw 3 did not get along at all. Now, we ended up becoming really good friends, and he ended up doing another movie with me after the fact. But when we first came on, I'm not sure if he was familiar with what the Saw franchise actually was. Mm-hmm. He probably was told it's a horror film and it's psychological and blah, blah, blah. Well, then he realized how kind of gross it was. And one of his early days in it was he had to be in the pig trap scene where the pigs were, you know, blending and pig slop was being thrown on a drowning man. Yeah. So he looks at it and says, the scene was Angus had to run in and save the guy who was drowning. And he looks at it and is like, you're not going to put pig guts on me, are you? And obviously in the scene, that's 100% what we were going to do. And it wasn't real pig guts. It was like gelatin and other shit. Right. And I said, Angus, yes, it's in the script. Of course we are. And he's like, well, I'm not doing that. That's disgusting. And I was like, Angus, we have to. And he said, can't you shoot it from my back and have someone else do it? And you could tell he was really uncomfortable about this. And so I said, okay, Angus, fine. We won't put it on you. And it was the only way that he would kind of go on with the scene. Well, the second he gets in the trap, immediately I said, fuck it, hit him with the pig guts. And so we start rolling camera, and there was a noise before the pig guts came that kind of alerted the actor this was about to happen. You see his horrified reaction turn, his eyes get wide, and he screams, no! Well, that was really pig guts hitting him, and it stayed in the movie as that actual moment where he got hit by them was an actual real reaction of Angus McFadden being furious that he was about to get hit with all of this pig shit.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he got really mad afterwards, obviously. That was kind of a dick move to do, but
did he get you back?
I apologized profusely, and we became friends after that, but that was another fun one.
Did he get you back?
No. Well, yes and no. He's a prankster on set, but I don't think anything is going to beat or top what I did.
No.
You're probably right there. We do have one more listener question about Saw, and I promise you it's the last one.
No worries.
Suraj Prakash from our group here wants to know, first off, a big fan of Saws 2 and 3, but his question is, when writing and directing a horror thriller like those films, what's your technique like? Are the set pieces driving the story, or are the characters and their motives driving?
It's a good question. And actually, when we made Saw 3 and 4, the traps are the last thing to be thought of or implemented. It's, we actually put holes in the script that says trap to go here. And we didn't know what we were going to do in some instances until a few days or weeks before we actually started filming. So the traps actually were the last thing that came together. I think it was always Tobin Bell first, Jigsaw first, the twist second, and the traps third.
Wow.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Is that because of the turnaround? Because they were popping them out like every year for a good time? Is that why?
Yeah, I mean, it became harder and harder to find innovative ways to kill people and without jumping the shark. And so specifically on Saw 4, I remember that when I shot Saw 4, I was really concerned because in the way the schedule was set up, the first 10 days had no violence in it. It was just people talking. And I was terrified that we were just doing people talking. And then eventually, after like day 10 or 11, we started doing the traps. But traps always was the last thing that went into the movies. And also, I think the other reason why is it gave us more time to flesh them out. They weren't just thrown at the screen and hope they worked. We had time to actually pick them apart and say, is this the best version of the trap it can be?
Okay, people, we're going back in time to that was the worst Huey Lewis impression you've ever heard. But this is when our original co-hosts, myself, Aaron Peterson, Scott Clark, Justin McCumber, Brian Williams, we're all together, and we're talking about iconic horror villains, what makes them iconic, and who is iconic to us. And it'll be interesting because I haven't heard this since we first did it, and it's probably several years old. This is like one of the first horror episodes we ever did. And I think it will be fascinating to hear this and kind of wonder and see how ideas and visions have changed since then. I don't think much has changed, but I can't wait to hear exactly what it is. Because I purposefully didn't listen to the full section because I kind of want to experience it new. I mean, these guys, we started this podcast and it's kind of fun to relive that sometimes. So here you go. This is iconic horror villains.
It can be anything. It can be a certain look, a mask. Could be a catchphrase. It could just be the one that just scared the bejesus out of me. And gave me nightmares or something. So there's lots of things. It could be even something that may not even be the actual villain. Take Saw, for instance. I mean, the most iconic figure from that is not the actual villain. It's a dummy.
Oh, it's the puppet, yeah.
He's just a chattermouth with a recorded voice in him. I don't know. It doesn't necessarily have to be a vicious or really crazy or something, but if you've got a unique look, bring something that I haven't seen in a while, then that's what, like the something simple like the Scream mask.
Ghostface.
Yeah, Ghostface. It's such a basic thing, but it works.
It sold millions of masks.
It sure did.
I was going to say people are still buying it.
And really, I think we've all said it, and I'm going to concur with everyone. It's really a look, and it doesn't have to be like a full look. You don't need the full Michael Myers machine suit, but it's really, something that's identifiable quickly. So if you see something and it doesn't happen to be the killer, just somebody wearing a hockey mask and you're like, oh shit. And you have to do a double take because you're so used to that hockey mask identifies a mass murderer. I think the look is really, really important. If you really look back at some of the most popular iconic killers, you've got Leatherface. He had the chainsaw and they had that face of skin. You've got Michael Myers and the William Shatner mask, which who would have thought that would be horrifying at the time? That was a gamble. Ghostface, like you were talking about, that's actually just been the mask for random killers throughout that series. And it's still, it's creepy. If you saw someone come into your door and it wasn't Halloween wearing that mask, you'd be freaked the fuck out.
Well, go back even further. I mean, Boris Karloff's Dracula. How iconic would that character have been had he not been wearing that tuxedo, that cape that he could swirl around? I think that look is part of what really pushed that character into the popularity that he attained. Same thing for Frankenstein's look.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the Mary Shelley book, there's no bolts in the neck. There's none of the visuals that Universal gave to that character that really made it. I mean, you could see that guy just in silhouette. You know exactly who it is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, who for you, before we get to the ones we love, and we'll talk about the most popular ones as well, but for you, who was the worst horror villain that has somehow become iconic and you're just shocked that it happened?
I've got to go with the Leprechaun.
That's a really good one, actually.
Because you don't like Warwick Davis or what?
Well, it's got nothing to do with Warwick Davis. I like
He hates
plenty
the
of movies
Irish.
he's in. I just, being part Irish, don't hate him too much, but
You can be self-hating.
Self-loathing.
Wasn't Jennifer Aniston in that?
Jennifer Aniston was in the very first one, yeah. Why don't you like Leprechaun?
it's just one of those cheesy I guess, and maybe this is part of the draw to it, is just that it's one of those like B movie properties that just somehow got like 25 sequels or something. And it's just, I just don't, maybe I missed the boat. Maybe I didn't appreciate it when I saw it for the first time, but it's just ridiculously stupid. It's not scary at all, but somehow this is, I mean, you mentioned Leprechaun, everybody kind of know, and the reason why I call him iconic is when you mention the Leprechaun, people know exactly what you're talking about.
That's true.
Yep.
That's true. That counts.
Wasn't there one like Back to the Hood or something? And
Yes,
there's a leprechaun
with
like
Ice-T.
throwing up gang signs on the
I
on the
watched
cover?
it. It was horrible. I mean, they were all horrible, but that one was really horrible.
I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this, but I don't get Chucky. I think the whole concept with the first movie was clever. A doll that comes to life and that kind of thing. But did it need that many sequels? There was like 5 sequels to the original.
No, it did. I will answer your question. No, it did not. It did not need all those sequels.
It's I don't know. I always have a hard time believing that, number one, anyone would buy a doll that looks like that for their kid.
Nobody would.
Even before he transformed or whatever. That was the terrifying freaking.
I don't know what the original little doll that was in the box. I could see that being something people would buy. I mean, how many people?
And you got a fucked up childhood if you thought they
No,
would
I
buy.
mean, what was that one doll when we were kids? My buddy. My buddy doll.
Buddy.
Yeah, my buddy.
buddy.
That thing could have been Chucky.
Take him everywhere.
I mean, he didn't have all the scars and
My
fucked
buddy.
up face when he was in the box.
I thought the doll looked creepy in the box. I didn't
He
understand.
got nothing on Annabelle.
Well, that's a little different story. But my other thing with that too is and I think we talked about this last week. I have a hard time believing that not one person's going to stop a 2-foot doll, no matter how fast
It got
running.
more ridiculous the more movies that came out, like especially in the second one where like Chucky's chasing the kid through a toy factory. I'm like, how can this kid not outrun this little doll?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if he's got really quick little legs, they're still little legs, and they're
They're plastic shoes. They're not Air
Yeah,
Jordan.
it would have to be a toy, it would have to be a doll of the Flash to,
the Flash doll. That's funny.
I specifically remember in the very first Child's Play movie, he goes to pick up a hammer, I think it was, and it makes the noise like he unsheathed a sword.
Yeah, I did. I remember that.
It's like, it's a hammer. I don't know.
I mean, it's like we've talked about bad sound effects and stuff in other movies where a car is squealing its tires, but yet it's on a gravel dirt road.
Right.
Yeah, every time Jason Voorhees takes out a machete, it usually makes that sound, and it's coming out of his pants or something.
Right.
It really makes no sense. It doesn't need to, Scott, because that sound makes you go, "Oh shit, somebody's going to die."
But a machete could make that noise. You could not get
coming
a
out of
hammer.
my pants. It couldn't. I've tried. Don't ask why. Don't ask these questions.
My point is, you could not do anything to a hammer to resemble anything like that sound. Especially
true.
just picking it up off of a table. It wasn't even like a quick, it was just like, oh, here's my hammer.
You know what else was funny about those? It's like when Chucky would actually, when they would finally recognize, oh shit, the doll's alive, and he would start chasing them, and they would be in a room, and he'd be running at them, and it'd take them a good 4 or 5 seconds before they went anywhere else, because otherwise it's too easy to get away from him.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd see his little feet running, And then they made that scream face, and then finally they ran away. It was always ridiculous.
Yep.
Justin, who's your worst iconic villain?
Oh, Scott stole mine, of course. Chucky's the dumbest horror villain to ever attain iconic status. It's just pathetic. And it's more for the camp. The first movie they actually maybe tried to make a horror film, but after that, it was all for the jokes. I mean, he cracked more one-liners than Freddy Krueger ever wished he could. It was more comedy than horror, and personally, I can't stand the character. I hate the movies. Brad Dourif, I love you, but man, those are turds.
Mine's Jigsaw. And I know that's going to make some people mad because they love the Saw. And I love the first Saw movie. I think the first Saw movie is one of the best horror thrillers. I don't know if I'd call it really just a straight horror movie because it's really more of a thriller. But as the series went on, and man, did it go on. The absolute ridiculousness of how thought out this cancer patient was and had all these traps, these master traps just plotted out apparently years and years in advance. The series continues long after he dies. It just became ridiculous. And for me, it was really hard to continue buying into it. If you would have stopped probably at the third movie, I'd be, all right, I understand where he's coming from. But the dude dies and it went on like 4 more movies.
Right.
It was ridiculous.
Well, the thing that
Why
frustrates...
does he have time for all that in between chemo treatments?
Exactly.
Come on.
You know what? You probably would have lived had you went to your chemo treatments instead of
That's
plotting
right.
all these traps.
He wants to play a game.
So you deserve to die.
The thing that bugs me about that movies, and this is why they made 6 of them, is because the attraction to those movies was the fact that they were just a gore fest in these traps.
Absolutely.
And they wanted to see how jacked up these traps would get. The first movie, if you took out all of the visual gore in that movie, it would still be an awesome
It's a great movie. And the ending is fantastic. It's like 7. The ending is that good.
Seriously, I had like a spine tingling, I can't believe that just happened moment the first time I saw that movie. And that's one of those movies.
Even with Cary Elway's horrible acting.
Yeah.
He was horrible in that movie.
He was pretty bad in that movie. But that was a movie that I love to go back and show to people. You know, you got to watch this movie, and then I loved watching their reaction to the ending. And then they made a second one, and it was just like, I don't care about Jigsaw anymore. I think I gave up at 4. I think is where I stopped.
I stopped at the third one. After he died, I did not watch another one after that. No. Now let's talk about some of the most popular ones, and we'll talk about our favorites in a minute, but we're going to run through the ones that, according to the box office, are the most popular horror villains out there. And I'm going to run them by you guys, and you take a vote. If you don't think they're iconic, just say so, and we'll talk about it. Freddy. I think everybody can agree that Freddy Krueger is one of the most iconic horror villains. If you don't know who Freddy is, which movie would you guys recommend? I would recommend the first Nightmare on Elm Street if you've never seen a Freddy movie.
Yeah, the first one and only the first one.
The only one I ever saw was Freddy versus
Wasn't the
Jason.
second one though? I thought Nightmare on Elm Street 2 was pretty good.
No.
No?
That
If you're a fan of Nightmare on Elm Street, get on Netflix and watch the documentary about the whole franchise. It's a good 3.5, 4 hours long, but it details the entire history of that franchise, and it is really a fascinating insight into those movies. I had no idea that the second movie was all about coming out of the closet, but you watch the documentary, you're like, oh yeah, that's all over that movie.
Jason Voorhees, iconic. Yep.
I don't know how that's not. I can't watch a hockey game without.
You know what's funny about that one is if you've never seen the series, and I can't imagine you've seen all of them, Scott.
I've not seen
the
one.
hockey mask wasn't even introduced until the third movie.
Really?
Yeah. And the first movie, he wasn't even in it. He was just the story point. Jason Voorhees, it was his. Oh wait, spoiler alert! It was his mom. Shh.
Yeah.
In the second one, he wears a pillowcase to the whole thing, which honestly I found far more terrifying. I thought this Friday the 13th Part 2 was a horrifying movie. I don't know why, but that one really, really worked. You too, Brian?
Yeah, that's probably the reason why. That's probably the second movie, that I was thinking was just as good, if not better than the first. But yeah.
Yeah. And then he ended up getting the hockey mask in the third movie, Friday the 13th 3D, which I saw it in 3D, and I was hiding under the seats the whole time. And then after that, it just became iconic. He even wore that thing into space, So, Leatherface, iconic, agreed?
I think his face isn't as iconic as the chainsaw.
Yeah, I think both of them together work the best.
Mm-hmm.
But you never see him, at least pictured, you never see him without it. And I think that it's a right. There's a kind of duplicity there. There's I guess a symbiotic relationship there. Right. You equate, okay, if you just had a big guy, you're not sure who that is. But he's got a chainsaw. Bam. Leatherface.
Now, random question. Has there been a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie that was as good as the original or even close since with all the spinoffs that they've had, sequels and everything else?
I thought the one remake wasn't.
That first remake I thought was fantastic.
The Jessica Biel one?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I like that one.
And not just because she's running around that tank top the whole movie.
No, but like that opening scene where the kid gets shot or something, and the camera it pulls back, and you realize it's pulling back through his head. And I was like, whoa!
Yeah, that was actually pretty good.
Wasn't that the one that, like, in the trailer they just had like that long chainsaw like sitting on her shoulder, and they kind of zoom back, and then you see her face, and it just kind of shows like this perspective shot of how long that blade was, and that was a freaky trailer, and I thought the movie was fun.
Michael Myers. Now, he's become kind of the symbol for Halloween, so I would say absolutely he is iconic.
The theme song alone.
I think we can all agree that's the best horror theme song. That's the first one I would think of.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you think the movies have gotten progressively worse? Should they stop with Michael Myers? Should they reinvent him? What do you guys think?
Should stop with Rob Zombie.
Yeah, well, I agree with that.
Where did it end? I don't even remember. It was H2O the last. Was there one after
No,
that?
Rob Zombie made 2 really shitty movies.
No. I mean, but that was rebooting the franchise, right?
Yeah. No, there was several left. No, was there any?
Oh, there was one that was
H2O?
like where they had camovers, like free.
Resurrection.
Resurrection, yeah.
Yeah, that was awful.
I've never actually seen a full movie.
Really?
Yeah, I've said it repeatedly. I'm not a slasher fan, and I think the only reason I'm more familiar with Jason and Leatherface is because those films were pushed on me more than how the Halloween movies were. I really don't know why, but I don't care for slashers.
8 more days to Halloween, Halloween.
But that's from
8 more
that
days to
terrible
Halloween.
fucking-
Silver Shamrock.
We should have
that movie was terrible.
We could have a whole debate on Halloween 3. Have you ever seen that one, Scott?
Mm-mm. Is that the one where Dr. Loomis?
No, Dr.
No,
Loomis
he's not
is
even
not
in
in it. That's where they have a master plan to kill all the children in the world.
Season of
It is.
What?
It's the horror version of Fast and Furious 3.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah,
They go to Japan or
No.
it's worldwide, man. It's worldwide.
Oh,
And they do a Halloween drift. So it's just,
Right through your neck.
but it has one of the catchiest jingles you'll ever hear. Silver
Yeah, I remember
Shamrock.
it 30 years later.
You will, man. Yeah, happy Halloween, Halloween. You got to watch it just for the jingle, or go to YouTube and listen to the jingle. It's like
Right.
crack.
all right.
Okay, we talked about Ghostface from Scream. I think you agree. Hannibal Lecter, and I spelled it intentionally incorrectly. It's been spelled twice differently in films. Manhunter spelled it completely different than later
Both
films.
an H.
They're all spelled with an H, I guess.
No, the last name.
Scott is on it tonight, man. What's up with that?
Do you guys think that Hannibal Lecter is an iconic horror villain?
No.
Why do you say no?
I know this is an an unpopular point of view, but it's not, because I don't look at Silence of the Lambs as being a horror movie.
I agree.
I look at it as being a thriller.
Mhm.
It is a drama. I would call it more of a thriller, but I don't look at that. He is an iconic villain, but he is not an iconic horror villain.
All right.
So
I can swallow that.
Ooh.
wow.
What else?
What's on Chianti?
What about you, Justin? Do you agree with that?
What's on
If only one person had played Hannibal Lecter in all the different iterations, or if there was some kind of look that followed, like a mask or something that followed
he
all
had
of them.
that face mask.
Well, yeah, but he only wears it for a limited amount of time. I really don't. I mean, he's an iconic character, but there's really just no one face I really put to that character.
Really?
And for me, that lowers him on the totem pole of villains.
Are you trying to say that Anthony Hopkins is the one you would think
He
of?
is the one that I would most likely think of, but there's also from Manhunter. There's also from the TV show.
Mhm.
So there's a little too much difference mired into that character.
I agree with you, but at the same time, I will probably only watch Silence of the Lambs around Halloween time. I don't consider it
It is
a
a
horror
pretty
movie.
creepy movie, but I see what you're saying.
Right, but it is very creepy.
I actually really like Brian Cox's take on it, and unfortunately, it's the one that nobody really cares for.
Mhm.
But he really played him as a sociopath. So I thought Anthony Hopkins was great, but he went a little over the top at parts. And Brian Cox, I think, was really just evil throughout. I never stopped thinking he was evil. Anthony Hopkins, I want to have a beer with. So to me, that made the difference.
I think 7 is scarier than the Hannibal Lecter movie.
Oh, it is, man. It's a horrifying movie.
Well, it's more real. I mean, more could happen because Hannibal Lecter is in prison the whole time. He's freaky because you're in prison with Clarice having these conversations with him, and he's trying to get into her head. 7 is like John Doe could find you and do this right now.
And I really recommend, if you haven't seen the Hannibal series, check it out, because Mads Mikkelsen's take on him is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Jaws. I don't have this, but Jaws is actually considered an iconic horror villain.
Mm-hmm.
You guys agree?
Yeah, I can see that.
Right. Norman Bates. I think that pretty much... Do you guys think Norman Bates qualifies as a horror villain?
Yes. I think Psycho is definitely a horror film.
A lot of people would say it created the slasher genre itself.
I could go with that.
All right. Now, for you guys, let's bottom line it. Who do you consider to be the most iconic horror? It doesn't have to be any of the ones we named, but for you personally, is the most iconic horror villain? Scott?
When I started thinking about this, I came up with one villain, and I said, oh, man, this is the one that sticks out the most. And I went through, through some lists and tried to come up with somebody else, and I kept coming back to Pinhead from...
Hellraiser.
Oh my God, Hellraiser, thank you.
That would have been funny if you sat there for 5 minutes trying to figure out the movie you were talking about.
Well, that's part of the point is, like, to me, Pinhead is more iconic than the movie itself. I mean, I like the first Hellraiser. A bunch of crappy sequels were okay, but Pinhead was awesome.
He is the one where you're just waiting for him to show up.
Yeah, that's like, you just can't wait to see him. And those movies seriously creeped me out. I mean, he's got the grid-shaped scars all over his head, the pins sticking out for like these weird piercings almost. His eyes are completely black. He's got that terrifying robotic voice almost, and the way he moves.
That British robotic thing going.
Oh, so good. He has the ability to summon those freaky-ass Cenobites at will, or just like by looking off in the corner, bring in these chains with hooks out of nowhere and rip the skin off of your body. It just is so freaking imposing and terrifying to me. I have a hard time coming up with anybody else that just, by the first time you look at him, just scares the crap out of you, and the last guy that I would want to meet in an alley.
All right. I'm going with Jason Voorhees. I know it might be a easy choice for some people, but for me, he's immortal. He's been killed repeatedly. I mean, if you follow all of the canon, and there's a lot of canon, he's been to space, he's been to hell, he's come back from all of it. He took on Freddy and ended up with his head. The guy can kick anybody's ass at this point, as far as I'm concerned. If people wear a goalie mask, someone is almost always guaranteed to go, kill. For me, Jason's the man. He's just the most iconic. And I really prefer, if I have a preference, it's earlier Jason, because he actually ran around a little bit. He wasn't just, you go ahead, I'll catch up, like he was in the later movies.
While they run, he's sipping some tea.
Yeah, he's just like, oh man, I'll get there. Don't worry about it.
It's like Pepe Le Pew.
He always knew a shortcut. And he always knew some idiot would just trip over the random branch that woods happen to be full of. But apparently, whatever.
Well, they are woods.
That's true. You'd think people would pick their feet up more. They don't.
It's not just a clever name.
No. Brian?
I mean, I've got to echo Jason. And I don't know how we're going to do this round robin to death thing later, but
we'll get there.
But here, hey, he's got 300 plus kills. That's more than, if you rank all of the horror villains, that's more than number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 combined.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. That's Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, the Leprechaun, Jigsaw, Pinhead, Leatherface. He never had to run. Like I said, he just always popped up. I don't know how on earth he did that, but
Well, he ran in the first, part 2 and part 3, and then I think he's just like, fuck this. I know where everybody's going. I'll just start walking.
Yeah.
Cardio, I guess, exhausting.
Those types of hockey masks haven't been used in 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
But yet.
See why? They don't protect shit with their face.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, his face looks pretty awful.
But even still, you still see that and that's what you think of.
Mm-hmm.
And you just, you can just say Jason, you can just say, he was wearing a hockey mask, and you just automatically know what somebody's talking about. So more so than any of the other, there are some notable horror villains, but none more so iconic as Jason.
Justin?
I got to go. I think that we sort of did this last year, and I mentioned Pinhead from the Hellraiser movies, but this time I'm going to go with, whenever I think horror, the first face that enters my brain is Reagan, possessed by whether it's Satan or whatever demon it is.
I was thinking Ronald Reagan.
No. Yeah, Ronald Reagan. Oh, Jesus. He would be the...
Well,
That trickle-down theory, man. Holy crap.
Oh, is he wrong? No, Reagan from The Exorcist. Possessed, tied up to that bed, face just fucked up, stabbing herself in the crotch with a cross, kills a priest just by looking at him. That's a badass villain right there.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Okay, now we're going to take our villains into the Thunderdome. And what we're going to do is we're going to determine exactly who would emerge victorious. So we each get to vote on each one of these little clashes, and the majority rules. In the case of a tie, we'll either make our case for our respective villain, or we'll just flip a coin, whichever works. Essentially, how this is going to work is 4 killers are going to enter. 1 is going to walk out alive. Brian and I picked the same one. So, Brian, you can pick any other horror icon when it comes your turn. Since I go first. Or I will pick whichever you prefer. However you prefer it.
I'll pick another one then.
Okay. All right, so Brian's going to pick another one. So first, it's between Scott and myself. Now, Scott, your iconic villain was who again?
Was Pinhead. And I'm already at a disadvantage because obviously Brian's going to pick
that
your
doesn't
pick.
mean anything. So, and I've got Jason. So it's Pinhead versus Jason. Take a vote. Scott, you obviously want Pinhead. I obviously want Jason.
Absolutely. There's no way that Jason's going to even get to Pinhead, much less.
Fucker went to space, dude.
Yeah, he didn't go to hell.
Pinhead ain't been to space. Well, he might have been one of those other shitty movies, but I didn't see it.
Wait, Jason
Yeah,
did go
he
to hell.
actually has been to space in one of those other shitty movies. So, booyah!
Justin, who's your vote?
I got to give it to Pinhead, if only because Jason's too stupid to even open up the box. But even if somebody did come along and take pity on the lumbred fucker and open it for him, I definitely think that Pinhead's ability to summon all those torture devices, I don't think Jason would get close.
All right, Brian, you're the deciding vote. Do you think Pinhead could take Jason?
No, like I said, Pinhead might be Hellraiser and all that stuff, but Jason's been down there. He's come back. Jason, like I said, nobody holds a candle to him. If you reside in hell or in some aspect of hell-ish looking place like that, you would think you would have a few more kills under your belt. Jason, 3, like I said, he's got more than the top 6 after him.
Just because they're undocumented. He didn't go to hell for vacation. He's from there.
All right. Well, we got a tie. So like we said, we're going to flip a coin.
Oh, my God, really?
But, Scott, I will be a gentleman. You can call it.
All right,
heads or tails.
Heads I win, tails you lose.
Okay.
What is it?
Tails.
Tails you lose.
No, you picked heads. You don't get. I heard what you said, Jackass. You picked heads. Don't think because you said it all fancy, I'm not smart enough to catch on. All right. Pinhead lost. All right. Now it is Jason versus Reagan. Justin?
Isn't it Regan?
Reagan.
Yes.
Well, he said Reagan originally. That's why I thought Ronald Reagan. So who wins this one?
I think it's easy. Regan, of course, wins. She's telekinetic. He'd raise up that machete to come down and kill her. She'd just flick it away. She's a fucking demon.
I just want to point out in Friday the 13th, The New Blood, he actually fought someone with telekinesis, and he still came back from the dead.
And I guess someone who hasn't seen those movies, what is Jason? Is he just a guy, or is he a demon?
He's awesome.
I mean, is there any supernatural thing going on with Jason? Or is he just like a...
Well, I mean, fucker he's
basically a zombie.
Yeah, essentially. He's a really powerful zombie. Nobody really knows what he is, Scott.
Okay.
That's part of the mystery. He was originally killed years ago because a bunch of counselors were having sex. Shame on them. And now he's come back
and smoking the dope.
Yeah.
When he was a little kid at like 6 years old, he killed his older sister.
Well, she was a bad girl. She had it coming.
Wait, did he? That's Michael Myers, dumbass.
No, it was Jason Voorhees.
No, it was Michael Myers. When did Jason kill?
No, it was. Yep, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, I know I'm right.
Sorry.
Oh shit, you've said Aaron's right twice.
Hey, you agree with him,
in
dumbass.
one episode.
Look, it's been a long day.
All right, so he's saying Regan. Who are you saying, Scott?
I'm gonna go with Regan too. I think the supernatural aspect is gonna win over just a zombie or whatever he is.
God, Brian, I assume you're going with Jason.
I'm going with Jason.
All right, I guess we're doing Justin.
So basically, Scotty, what this is it's 2 on 1 on 1. So we were fucked from word 1.
Justin, what's your pick? Heads or tails?
I will go with heads.
That's heads. So Jason loses to a ridiculous 12-year-old. Brian, who's your pick?
Well,
please make it be Jaws.
No, we're going to stay with the devil here.
Okay.
My pick is the Antichrist himself, Damien from The Omen.
Oh shit.
Shit.
Who wins against Damien versus Regan?
Fuck, I don't think Godzilla, maybe? I don't fucking know.
Well, considering Damien is the Antichrist and Regan is possessed by just a legion.
A blue
collar devil, demon, whatever.
Devil.
Exactly. Damien is the Antichrist. He is the big cheese.
I'm going with Damien.
Shit, I got to go with Damien over my girl.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
Let's recognize though that this is a little boy beating up on a little girl. And let's not let that go unremarked on.
That doesn't make it less awesome.
And this little boy that played Damien, and just real quick in this movie, that he didn't need any kind of special zombie looking makeup, or spit out green pea soup to make him look creepy. He just had to stand there. And I'll be honest with you, it's been a long time since I've seen The Omen, but I don't even remember the kid talking through the movie, and he's still one of the just creepiest little kids I've ever seen.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
I gotta give it to you. You pulled out a good one.
Nice.
Can you feel it? Huh?
Great Ace Ventura impression. And to end our Halloween episode, we have to have some fun. So Sean Iams Fuller from the Horribly Awkward podcast joined us for a happy Halloween episode in 2018, where we just talked about the movie Halloween, and we talked about Halloween itself, what candy we loved, and had some fun with the episode. This is how to survive a horror movie. I think this is the first time we ever did this segment. We've done how to survives in different aspects since then, but this is the first time we did it, and I think we had probably the most fun doing it here. This is with myself, Amanda Sink, and Sean Fuller, because John was, I don't know, not partaking. He was off doing something, probably growling about something. John. All right, so here we go. This is how to survive a horror movie. All right, now we're going to play a fun game, I think. How do you survive? So I'm going to list 4 typical horror or Halloween scenarios, okay? Then each of us is going to share exactly how they would survive if it happened to them. Have as much fun with this as you want to. And we're going to do the same order every time just to make it easier. Amanda, me, Sean. Okay?
Yep.
Yeah, give me some. Okay, I'm going to improv these guys. Let's have some fun.
You you do that. So Amanda, me, Sean. The first scenario. You guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
Being pursued by a cold-blooded killer through the woods. You trip and you fall just as the killer arrives. How do you survive?
Well, more than likely, I still have my purse on me, and that thing weighs at least 5 pounds. So I'm taking it, and I'm swinging he or she across the face with it. That's going to get them, at least they have to take a second to rebound from that, because I'm telling you, there's a lot in there. And then I'm going to kick them in the groin when they lean over, because, ouch, that hurts.
Good move. Groin's always good.
Yeah. I'm going to take their head and I'm going to smash their face into my knee. And then I'm running. And I'm not a runner, but I'm going to run out of there. Go on.
Amanda Wick.
And I'm screaming. I should mention that too. I'm going to be screaming the whole way.
Of course. Because you want to alert the killer to exactly where your location is.
You're in the woods. No good.
Oh, that's
You're
true.
running
Yeah.
out of breath.
Yeah, that's true.
I can't, you're right. I'm not a runner. I can't run and scream at the same
Sean
time.
is explaining a common problem. If you keep screaming, you actually cost yourself breath from the run.
Yeah, I physically would not be able to do it.
Whistle. Real loud.
I can't whistle.
Who can whistle while
can't
they're
either.
running?
I can't even whistle.
All right, well, how I would survive is I would grab my keys, which would be in my pocket, because you always have your keys in your pocket. And you know how you take your key and you poke it through, like you make a fist, and you poke your key through that little hole between your knuckles, right? So it's like a knife.
That's how women always carry their keys.
Yeah, well, that's how you do it. And then as soon as the killer gets there, you punch it. You groin punch, I groin cut. I stick that fist and I stab them right in the nuts. That's what you do, right in the balls.
What if it's a girl?
Right in the mom and daddy buttons. And then, if it's a girl, then it's going somewhere else. But it's going to the same location. We're going to make a popsicle out of this. And then after they're on the ground and they're crying, I'm stabbing them in the eye. I'm doing the same thing, but I'm hitting them in the eye over and over and over until they stop moving. What?
It was in their balls and now it's in their eyeball?
I don't care if they get an infection. I don't care. And then I'm just jabbing in their eyes till they seem dead. I don't trust that they are dead, so I just keep jabbing them. I get about 20, maybe 30 hits in there. I assume the police are going to question me about this. Why'd you stab me so many times? I was really scared. Why in the balls too? I don't know. It seemed excessive, but I did it. And then I'm going to run. And I'm not going to scream. I'm just going to run. Because I know how to run properly. All right, Sean, how do you survive?
All right, so if I'm running and I trip and fall, I'm going to follow that fall with a roll, and I'm going to roll and roll and roll through the mud and through the dirt. So it's going to be like a cartoon, how the snowball gets bigger and bigger, and at the end you're like a big snowball. But I'm going to be big, a big like dirt Hulk-looking creature, and then I'm going to be bigger than the killer. So killer's screwed. So I'm going to grab the killer like Hulk does in Avengers. Spoilers. And I'm going to Hulk smash him, but I'm going to be like Dirt Hulk.
What just
the
happened?
whole crowd, no one's gonna know what they just saw. It's gonna be the best movie ever.
I like it.
Dirt Hulk.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be Dirt Hulk.
Second scenario. You ready? You find out your child is possessed by the devil and has trapped you in the house. How do you survive?
I don't. I sacrificed me and that kid. We're going out together. Peace.
Wow. Really?
I just saved a whole community. You're welcome.
You just killed your kid, man.
And myself. What's more important here? The demon or me? Definitely
Do you
me.
kill yourself or the kid first?
Well, if I kill me first, then I can't kill the kid.
Wow.
So the kid's got to go.
All right.
I'm setting us both on fire and I'm holding our hands.
See, that's my solution. I light the house on fire and I dive out the window.
Smart.
That's what I do.
I use fire in another one.
then if the kid somehow lives, I give him up for adoption.
Don't even, just leave him. Bye.
I'm just saying, if he lives in the country, he's like, this is your kid. I'm like, I don't want him back. Where do I sign? Obviously, we are not meant to be together. Bye. Bye, Damien. See ya. All right. What about you, Sean? How do you survive?
Well, first off, if a kid thinks that I'm his daddy or his or her daddy, then the kid must be possessed. But I think the simple solution is just get Wi-Fi with a lot of bandwidth and just give the kid an iPad. You'll keep it busy forever, right? Keep the thing charged in. You don't have to worry about it. You won't get to do no weird possessed things. You just keep him busy with an iPad. That's it.
All of a sudden, it's looking up demon videos, like trying to figure out how to get back to Satan.
FBI shows up at your house like, we gotta talk about your search history, buddy.
Oh, don't worry. It's just my demonic child over there.
He's always looking at those
How
crazy
to
videos.
dispose a body. Where's the best place to dispose a parental body?
Dad, I'm going to need some plastic wrap.
Do we have any shovels? We're out of duct tape. Gonna need this tonight.
All right. Scenario 3. Whenever you go to sleep, a scarred, sadistic murderer is hunting you. You're positive if he catches you in your dreams, you'll die. How do you survive that?
I'm talking him to death. because I'm definitely not a runner. I'm definitely going to sleep. So how am I going to survive this? I'm going to get in his head. I'm going to make him feel crazy for wanting to be in my dreams. So we're just going to keep talking and talking. I'm going to tell him about my day. I'm going to ask him about his day. We're going to start talking about his past, his history, his life, his romances, everything. And he is not even going to want to deal with me. He's just going to leave.
I think he'll kill you sooner.
Nope. Because if he gets any close, I'm going to keep walking backwards and getting away from him. And if he keeps pursuing me, he's got to hear my voice for the rest of eternity. And he's not going to want to do that.
I would leave too.
Yeah. Especially if I talk fast like that.
It might be foolproof.
It's a winner. Yeah.
It'd be a foolproof plan, Sean.
I'm living.
It's going to work. It's going to work. You know, like when people get bored, they just start twiddling their thumbs. You see him twiddling his knives. Like, like come on.
Here's how I would survive is as soon as the dream started and I see that the sadistic murderer is coming to kill me, I start getting very seductive. And I just start taking off a little bit of clothes here, a little bit of this here, a little bit of there. I start going toward him. And he's like, what just happened? And I'm like, what's up, finger knives? What do you do with those? Where do you put those? I'd like to see those go. Show me. Yeah, let's
show me the money.
Do you know the shocker, Freddie? Do you know the shocker? Let's play shocker. And then eventually, I think I creep him away. That's how I survive.
I think you and I are living. We are surviving.
Sean, you going to make it? How are you going to do it?
Okay. Well, since I can't predict when I'm going to fall asleep, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie my hand up. So right above an alarm clock, I'll set it for like 1 minute. This may take multiple times to time this out good, but when I fall asleep, my hand's going to fall on the alarm clock for 1 minute because my hand, I can't hold. I'm just going to hold my hand over the alarm clock. I fall asleep. I hit the alarm. Got 1 minute to handle this. I'm going to try to grab him. So in 1 minute, that thing comes. I have 1 minute to do this. But when that alarm goes off, maybe I could bring him out with me into the real world, and then I'll send him over to Amanda's house.
Where I'll talk him to death.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then I'll bring Aaron over to seduce him.
Yeah.
And talk about those finger knives.
Shocker, Freddie. Shocker. Yeah.
He's doing the motion. You can't see it right now, but I wish you could.
That's the shocker.
Definitely, this will all be on film. You know, you gotta film it.
All right, last one. You witness your next door neighbor kill a young woman. And it's obvious to you he's a vampire. And he also saw you. How do you survive?
Well, I'm doing a Buffy marathon. I'm going to watch at least 3 season finale episodes so I can really remember what works good. Then I'm going to stock up on some steaks. I'm going to, not like the actual ones from cows, the wood ones. Then I'm going to get a crossbow. I'm making some Molotovs, getting them prepared. And then I'm burning that house to the ground. Fire for everybody. You get fire and you get fire and you get fire. Bye.
All right.
I win.
Very excited.
I was going to seduce him. I thought about it.
It works.
I was going to.
Do vampire shocker? It's like 3 fangs.
Well, they have long nails, fingernails.
That's true. Yeah. I don't even have to have the knives. Yeah. All right. That's a good one. Here's
you going to one-up me?
Here's how I survive. I go next door. I knock on the door. He answers the door. I say, hey, guy, I saw what you did. He says back to me, hey, guy, I saw you too. I say to him, I want to join up because vampires are cool. He says, come on in. I become a vampire. I survive.
You didn't survive.
I did survive.
You became a vampire.
And I survived. Now I'm cooler.
You did not survive.
I get my own house because I can kill people and take their house. And then I'll recruit my own neighbor. And then it'll be like one of those pyramid schemes where I just I'll recruit some and I get
it works?
I get a little blood for every blood that they get. Yeah. Boom. Done. It's my own Nexium.
Dude, I'm going to follow right behind Aaron and be like, hey, guys. Guys, don't leave me out here. Like I've seen the vampire movies. I want to be young and sexy forever.
Exactly.
I'm past the point of young and sexy, but I want to be youthful forever. I want to join you. And have you guys ever heard of podcasting? Because I heard Aaron's really good at it, so we can get this guy right here. We'd come on, we can have a vamp cast, 3 vamps cast, and we can start this podcast. We'll invite Amanda over. We can watch reruns of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Man,
this
that's going to be
good.
awesome. Well, yeah.
I like it. You guys get me to survive just by going in there and becoming a vampire.
Our version of Friday Night lasts 5 minutes.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah,
Wait,
everybody wants to resist vampires, but like, nah, I want to be. Let's 30 days of night this shit, right? Let's all take over a town one night.
oh, yeah, but a warmer one. We don't want to go to there. I mean, that's just so cold.
Well, we get so much time though. You get 30 days to like figure it out, right?
Also, they tried this in Buffy, just so you know, and everybody got eaten and died.
No. We would do
They
it
didn't turn
different.
vampires.
Guess what? Buffy's not real. Vampires are. So we will be doing that.
Wait, hold on a second. You've been arguing with me that ghosts aren't real, but then you're going to sit here and
Ghosts,
say
that's
vampires
silly.
are real?
Ghosts are silly. Vampires are cool. Ghosts are never cool. What do they do? They just float around.
Yeah, ghosts were honestly never cool,
Exactly.
except for Ghost Dad.
You know,
But, no, that's we all know what happened there.
yeah,
Bounce, chicka, wow,
he's
wow.
serving time in the afterlife. What? And if you want a Ho Teachable Minute this week, I will tell you that Sinister is not the scariest movie alive. But I would, of the last 20 years, I guess, is a movie ever alive? That's a weird way to say it. But I would like to know what you guys think is the scariest movie ever. Or the last 20 years. How about let's go the last 20 years. What is the scariest movie of the last 20 years? Why don't you tell us on the social medias at Buy Popcorn, on Facebook, The Hollywood Outsider, our Facebook group for The Hollywood Outsider where we put our topic in every week. Do that because we would love to hear what your thoughts are of what do you think is the scariest movie of the last 20 years, as well as what you thought of this episode. And I hope you had a really good time because we really appreciate everything you guys do and listening to us every week. And that's going to do it for this episode, though. Be sure to come back next week. We're going to do a really, really weird and fun thing with Sleepaway Camp next week. Scott Clark, former co-host, is coming back to help us with that. And I think it's going to be a good time. Please rate and subscribe on your preferred podcast app. A lot of people have been giving us some really nice reviews lately. That really means the world to us. Thank you so much. If you haven't and you want to, please do that. That really does help the show. And I hope to talk to you guys next week when we do some crazy Sleepaway Camp business. All right? So thanks once again, for listening to The Hollywood Outsider. And remember, the next time you head to a theater, buy popcorn. I need to work on a really scary voice. I was going to do a Jason voice, but what does he sound like?